Hake, mops, flat edge, and some daggers, and I'm going to talk about each one of those. I've also put some paintings here so that I can just show you some of the ways in which you would use the different types of watercolour brushes. So to start off with, this is a Hake. This is 3 sizes in the Hake brush. The one that I use the absolute most is this large one here. It's a size 2.5. This is a size 2 and a size 1. The biggest one cost me around $10, so pretty inexpensive, made in China. It's a natural bristle, it's goat hair, and it's really lovely and soft. And although it's quite inexpensive, it's totally top quality, and I use it all the time for doing things like, at the beginning of this painting, I completely covered the painting with water, and the Hake is something that's wonderful for just complete water coverage. The next type of brush that I want to talk about is a mop brush. I'm going to turn it upside down because you'll see there's a great similarity between the shape of the bristles, and you can see why it's called a mop, because it's kind of like a mop shape. And there are a huge variance in quality, huge variance in price, and I'm going to tell you which one I love the most and what's totally available if you're starting out and you just wanted to get one that's at the lower range price-wise. So this one here is the only one of the 4 mop brushes I've got here that is a natural hair. It's a squirrel, so it's absolutely glorious to feel. This particular brand is Alvaro Castagne by Neef. It's actually got a number 117. This is a size 4. It tells you on the side of the brush what the size is. The others are similar sizes as well. This brush performs really, really well. The disadvantage in this brush is the incredible price tag. I just went on to one of the websites I buy my brushes, actually I buy most of my art stuff from these days, and its retail price is $97, so it's at super expensive end of watercolor brushes, and it's also absolutely wonderful. Having said that, I only bought it because it came as a freebie, you know, buy a certain number of paints, and they were throwing in these brushes. So that's how I came to own one. And then I loved it, and I went and purchased one, waited for a special. I'm a bit of a bargain hunter. Waited for a special and bought it at, you know, I don't know, probably like $60, something pretty expensive still. And it began to shed hairs, and you know, that's when little bits of hair come out. But the company I bought it from were absolutely fantastic and replaced it, and this is my replacement, and it's been really, really good. Now, next up I want to show you the other mop brush. Now, this is the one that I use all the time. It's absolutely superb. It is called Kazan by Neef, and it's a synthetic, and its ability to hold water is even better than the natural squirrel, like this one here. The way it paints is absolutely superb. It's just the best brush that I've ever owned. It's pretty hefty. It retails for $46, and it's also got a mahogany stem, and that's absolutely wonderful. So there's no paint to ever peel off. It's held together by these wires, and it is just been the best performing brush I've ever owned. Absolutely love it. So these are 2 other types of mop brushes made with synthetic hairs, and you can get something like this one for around $11-12, and this one closer to $20, and both quite fine. They'll do the job. So if you're starting out, one of these brands would be just fine. This one is Holcroft, and this one is Artists. No, Roymac. This one's Roymac. So either of those would be just fine if you're starting out. And this one does have a beautiful point, which is really great for watercolour. But I'm going to set them aside because they don't form part of what I use every day in my painting. The next brush that I want to talk about is a flat edge, and so named because of this perfect flat edge. It is wonderful for doing things like removing, see this line here, this distant line that I removed in my Australian landscape painting. I did that by just dampening the brush in water, removing any excess dampness until it is just damp, and then removed a little bit of the pigment to form a distant soft line. So it has quite a specific purpose, but super useful for lots of situations. Here again in my leaf painting, in this section here where the back of the leaf is formed over, there were some lovely highlights that I wanted to remove, and again I just wet the brush, removed any excess dampness, and removed the pigment, and then you get these lovely highlights just there. So quite a specific purpose, but very, very useful. Putting it there, it forms part of my stable of paintbrushes that I use every day. The next one is a dagger. You can see by the shape how it gets its name. So it's kind of like a flat edge, and then it's had its bristles carved off. It's a artist first choice. It's a size half, and the disadvantage is that the paint is coming off. I don't know if you can see, it's painted in this really pretty blue, but because I've probably left it sitting somewhere damp, or I might have left it in my water pot for a little too long, this paint is starting to remove. Having said that, I have misused this expensive brush, and it's still in perfect working order. The advantage in this dagger is that it's cheap. It's around the $10 mark, and I think I bought that actually from Riot, those art stores that are everywhere in Australia. Now, the advantage in this wonderful point is that I added little bits of pigment when my painting was still wet, added a little bit of pigment to these distant hills. The point does that, and that edge does that, and the same in here. To get into these further fine edges of the leaf, in adding those bits of reds in there, it allows me to get in around difficult shapes, and it's a lovely small size, and it's something that I use nearly every day in painting. Now this is the newest brush to my set of what I use every single day. It's the same brand. It's Kazan by Neef. It's a so it's got a similar mahogany handle. It's similar in that the bristles feel absolutely beautiful, but they're totally synthetic. It's as soft as you can imagine. It's not wire bound like the mop brush is, but it seems to be performing very well. Mind you, I don't use it in near as much as this. It's got a really specific purpose, which I'll tell you about in a moment. The shape is called a dagger. So you can see that it is similar to this dagger shape, but it's quite different in that it is really long. Now what I've been using it for is one purpose, and it's awesome, but it's very specific. Now see here, the road is wider in the very foreground of the painting. While my foreground was wet, I completely saturated this dagger and simply dragged it through a few times, but I dragged it through, and it is capable of holding incredible amounts of water, but at the same coming to this really long point. So absolutely specific purpose, but marvelous. I've been able to create roads like never before, and within 4 strokes and I've got a road happening. So I'm starting to absolutely love this brush. The amount of water that this holds though would never be appropriate for a painting that's tight like this one. Paintbrushes like this are great for tight work where you need a limited amount of pigment, a limited amount of water, and you're getting in there and painting very specific details. Whereas my landscape's quite loose. And the landscape used the Hake for the creating all the water, the mop brush to get the cobalt and the permanent orange, and then I also used it for the foreground. So if you only had one shape that you wanted to buy for watercolour, this mop brush, this size is absolutely wonderful. It can paint a painting as small as this. It would have been used for, it's hard to remember, but it probably was used for bits in the centre of this painting for applying the first layer on my leaf, and it can also be used for enormous 56 by 76 full sheets of watercolour paper as well. So these are the paintbrushes that I use every day. The next video I make will be a little bit more information about round brushes, because they are the most important brush in your stable of watercolour brushes. Bye from me. Bye from Marion.